Welcome back, everybody. It's Monday, and we're here to get motivated. With this, I've been doing some research on what I've been wanting to talk about today, and this is a message that I've been needing for myself probably more than anything. A lot of people think that I'm a highly motivated person, and that I'm always trying to uplift others and stuff, but at times I have to really stop, self recognize, and realize the self destructive habits that I could be doing to myself too. And I have to overcome those just as much as anybody else. And I got into the thought like, well, how is that happening? What am I doing? Am I telling myself that I'm going to mess up? Or am I fulfilling self affirmations about this? Or like I talked about earlier a few weeks ago, where, your thoughts become your words become your actions, and your actions become your habits. And there's, we talked about the elephant and the rope, about there's these old things that are holding us back that that we're not quite sure how and why they even became something so insignificant that's still holding you down and holding you back. And I was watching a Mind Valley video earlier, but by a woman from Great Britain, from England. Her name is Marissa Peer, if I remember right. And she got into the idea about self talk and how you say things or what you say to other people. And one of her first slides, I took some notes on some of the things she said, and I'm just going to go through these really quickly. And these are all bulleted. And the first one is, what is expected tends to be realized. Imagination is more powerful than knowledge when dealing with your own mind or with the mind of others. There's a battle between emotion and logic, and usually emotions win. Mind always does what it thinks it does. Your mind will always do what it thinks you want it to do. Mind works to move you from pain to pleasure, and mind responds to pictures and words you install. So, I've been told many times that you are a conglomeration, or you are who the 3 to 4 people you spend the most time with are. So if you're always spending time with negative people, and what it says here, what is expected tends to be realized. If people are constantly doing negative affirmations around you and constantly dwelling on the worst case scenario, then you typically will end up being like them and will tend to become more pessimistic. Or you're just, going along to get along, or you get along to go along. You will end up creating those scenarios in your own head and creating those ideas that will then lead towards things that will never come to fruition or lead to tragedy and pain. Okay? Now, the imagination is more powerful than knowledge when dealing with your own mind. So, she used this great example about if you put a piece of wood on the ground and you ask somebody to just come up here, I'll give you $1,000, or she used the term $100. I'm just going to say it's something a little bit more grand, like $1,000. Okay, I'm going to have you walk across this 30-foot piece of wood on the ground, and I'll give you $1,000 if you go from one side to the other. Now, you give somebody that same piece of wood, and all of a sudden it is standing on top of 2 3-story buildings, in between these 2 3-story buildings. And you offer still the same, exact same piece of wood, just as sturdy. And it may even have one little support in the middle so that it won't bow in the middle, so it'll be supported and keep your body weight. But yet you're 30 feet up in the air, walking across the same board, and your imagination now goes to a point of like, oh, I am much higher. So it's the same width, same body, same actions to get from point A to point B, but your imagination is now thinking, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, instead of thinking, I've already done this before, or I can do this. Your imagination will start taking you to a place that is more powerful than the logic that it's doing. And that's actually to the next point. Your emotions overcome your logic. So if you're constantly going into a point of emotional reaction instead of logical action, planning out how this is going to be instead of reacting to what could be is going to set you up for that affirmation is going to come true. Like it said before, what you expect will tend to be realized. So if you let your emotions take the better part of you and you end up thinking more about the tragedy of the potential outcomes, she used a lot of the pretty strong things, especially working with kids going into tests or parents trying to become pregnant, where if your emotions can dictate physiology and your emotions can dictate outcomes when it comes to your biology. So it's really important that as we get into these situations that these positive affirmations aren't always over inflating positivity, but at the same time not exaggerating negativity as well. And that your emotions really can dictate the outcomes on these things. And the mind will always do what it thinks you want it to do. So again, there's what some people call the ego or the id that's in the back of our brain that will always try to predict what it thinks we want. And so it will put us into scenarios and cases that will, again, if we continually doing these habits, it will want to produce that habit over and over and over again. And so you have to break that habit. You have to start looking, you come to something that you traditionally do over and over and over again, expecting a different result. If any of you know me, again, that's the definition of insanity. If you want to break that insanity, you want to break that habit, you actually have to stop for that moment and start doing something that's unpredictable. You have to do something that is outside of your norm so that you can now create and get out of that adaptation and plateau and move towards something new in your life. And also, the mind works to move you from pain to pleasure. Well, unfortunately, there are those that we have been classically conditioned, just like Pavlov's dog, where you ring the bell and you salivate. Where, unfortunately, some people have become conditioned to pain and are uncomfortable with the idea of something that most others would consider to be pleasurable. And also, some people have been classically conditioned to what is pleasurable to be painful and inhibit the idea of going towards that, what is typically pleasurable to most others. Again, this is all subjective and that it's all based off of your own experiences. But things that are typically pretty benign and actually, if anything, very beneficial are painful to you. To think that it's painful to think that your success could be somebody else's pain also, because then if you become successful, then it may lead you towards some other things that are more pleasurable for you personally, but then that separates you from some people or some situations that you used to find comfort in. Now that you're not in that comfort zone anymore, that now becomes painful and uncomfortable. Some of you might recognize where I'm going with this. Is that in order to grow in life, pain is inevitable. And that we need to overcome these pains and now finding new comfort in things that we are now successful in. And the only way to overcome those pains and become successful is to just to do and try, right? Okay, and then the mind responds to pictures and words that you install. So if you are constantly putting, like what we've talked about with metabolism, you start putting, your body is what you build it out of, and that's the foods that you put into it. Well, just this very same thing, the food that you put into your mind, meaning the books that you read, the movies you watch, the music that you listen to, is not a manifestation of who you are. You are who you put into you, or what you put into you, or how you put into you. If you're always watching happy movies in the dark, well, guess what? You're getting that bright, colorful stimulation. Your mind is only focused on that. But if you're watching a very scary movie and a bright, bubbly environment around you, these are conflicting things. But if you have all this other noise going around you with colorful lights and stuff, and you have all this dark imagery in front of you, your mind may get mixed signals. Now, if you end up watching that same scary movie in the dark, all of a sudden now you're hyper focused on that very dark image. Some people find this also with music. If they put themselves in a situation where they're needing to be uplifted, they have that happy playlist that they have on Amazon or Spotify or Pandora that they just automatically hit, and it just takes them to that happy place. Same thing with calming music. But if all of the time we're just listening to erratic music that the message is usually found in depression or in unhappy thoughts or suicide or catastrophe or tragedy, it's really hard to find the good things in life when all you're doing is just putting the bad in. So I want this to be not for those of you that are listening to everything and only hearing the negative with that glass half full, and their perspective is half empty instead of half full. Like I just said, change how you say or think about what I just said. Go back and write down all of the things that I said you should do instead of thinking about all the things I told you not to do. Because if you start looking at the list, actually the list is going to be much longer than the things that I told you should do. And that the list that I told you not to do was maybe 1 or 2 points per, like 3 or 4 or 5 different things that I told you should do. And you're going to start recognizing that, like I said before, my glass is usually 3/4 full. And even on my worst days, it's only 1/4 empty. And I want you guys to start thinking about that too. And you start looking at that glass. I want you to say over and over again, that glass is half full, that glass is half full, that glass is half full. And when you now look at a glass, you always think that the glass is half full. That's important. When you're going for that long run and you're like, you can keep beating yourself saying, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And start thinking about, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. Or start focusing on each breath as it goes in and as it goes out, and recognize that you're breathing. And if you're breathing and you're upright, you're alive. And start recognizing that as you're running, that being alive is a lot more important than worrying about how much breath you're out of, and start worrying and start thinking about how wonderful it is to be breathing. It's an amazing thing to just change that perspective. Just turn any negative thought you have on itself. And now just think about, okay, what is the exact opposite of that? And say that and see what happens. Just take any negative thought and just turn it around on itself and start recognizing that there are 2 sides to every coin, and that it's still the same coin, and it's still you. You're still the same person, but you just have to decide which side you're going to look at. Hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell, all those wonderful things that all the YouTubers say. If you want to hear more about these things, on Mondays and on Tuesdays, we've got intermittent fasting. On Wednesdays, we have Get Moving. And Fridays, we have Get Metabolic. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. And like and share and tag other people to this video if you're watching on other social media platforms. Thanks.